So 7-5 was fun. 7-5 is some solving stuff. It's pretty easy. If you can ever get to fraction equals fraction, you just kind of cross multiply and set this cross on one side and this cross on the other side, and then you solve like it's algebra one again. Um, so distribute, move something over. I'm really hoping solving an equation that looks like this is pretty easy. It was for my students. The only thing that's a little bit different, we need to make sure we double check my numbers. Like, so I plug -5 back into my x's, -4, -2, that does equal 2. We make sure everything does equal what it says it's supposed to equal, but we can only use cross product when the two fractions are equal. Like we do cross multiply with the add subtract, but it wasn't quite the same. They were on the same side of what would be the equal sign, I guess. So that's why it's a little bit different here. It's definitely we'll cross, set it up, and do some distributing and solve. So cross, distribute, start solving. Um, I'm gonna go kind of fast because once you get to like this point here, it should be easy. And then take 11 and plug it back in. So I plugged it in here, and I just simplified that to 1/4. And I plugged it in here, simplified that to 1/4, and because they are equal, just like they said they were supposed to be equal, then I know my x equals 11 is correct. Here's another one. Let me move those out of the way real quick. Cross. Ooh, now we have x squared. This is where it gets a little bit different, but anytime we have x squared, we go back to like our quadratic stuff, and we really want one side of my equation to say equal 0. But it took a while for my students kind of figure it out. So they're like, okay, well, let's subtract 6s, get the x's together. It's like, fantastic. So I get here. They're like, huh, let's square root. And I was like, well, we can't square root yet because, well, the only thing that would square root is this x squared. 5 and 15 don't. This x sure doesn't. Oh, well, let's divide by 5. It's like, fantastic. Let's divide by 5 and got here. This is kind of where we were stuck. And that's when I had to say, if we have x squared, we usually want to be set equal to 0. So once I moved everything over, that's how I got it up here. This has a greatest common factor. I can backwards distribute. And then if you remember, once we get to here, once everything's factored, we just set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So x equals 0 and x minus 3 equals 0, which means x equals 3. Now you're probably wondering, what's up with this? Yeah, we got 2 answers, but can I use x equals 0? Can, and that's kind of what I use for. Can I plug in zeros there and there? I can definitely plug it in up here, but can I plug in zeros here? No, because even if there's a 0 on top, 0 divided by 0 in your calculator is going to give you an error. Like you just cannot divide by 0. So 0 is actually not an answer, even though we somewhat found that it was. Well, let's plug in 3 and just make sure. Well, when we plug in 3, we get 7/3. If I plug in here and when I plug in 3, that does say 7/3. So plugged in 3, top and bottom, yeah, it ended up working. So 3 was our only answer. So when you have quadratics, you definitely have to plug back in. It's potential 1 doesn't work. Cross, got here. Yeah, again, we got set equal to 0. And I said we could do this one of 2 ways. We could quadratic formula, so plug this in, or I said, or we could just factor it. I said, we're not going to have to worry. The good news is with like this stuff, you're not going to have to worry about something that looks like this. 10 plus or minus root 131 over, like we have before. If they give you a quadratic, it will be nice and pretty. Now, your fraction may be like 1/2 or 2/3, something like that, but it's just not going to be anything crazy like that, which is why I had that. I just wanted to make sure I talked about it a little bit. Not really part of the solution. But anyway, factor 7 minus and minus 4. So x plus 7 equals 0 and x minus 4 equals 0. So I get these two, which is what I would have gotten had I done this. Quick reminder, if you're going to do this in the calculator, get the fraction first. Okay, that's a negative, not a subtract. And to get plus or minus, you just do it once with plus and hit enter, and then go change it to minus and hit enter. Honestly, it's a good idea to throw that into parentheses, just in case it's a negative number. Save that so I can remind myself later.
But we get -7 and 4, and actually when we plug them in to both sides, I actually get the same thing. This would be -7/4, and I would have put in a -7 on top. This gets me 1 when I put a +4 in. So both of these actually work. So you don't just assume both work, obviously, because last time. You don't just assume only one of them works. It really just depends on the situation. So cross multiply, pretty easy. Not anything too absolutely crazy. Just make sure you got your solving skills down.